Welcome one and all to LisaJMoore's interpretation of the famous fairy tale Cinderella. This interpretation was brought to you by not only LisaJMoore, but some of her YouTube friends. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and enjoy this interpretation.
Hi, this is May, and this is my version of Cinderella. Cinderella was really a cheerleader who thought she was such big time crapola. And then she met this Prince Charming, and this big pumpkin grew out of the ground, and it grew up to the sky, and she climbed up the beanstalk, and she went into the clouds.
Once upon a time.
Oh, this sounds like an interesting story.
Yes, once upon a time, there was a girl. Her name was Cindy. And she lived in a house
In Cordova Bay.
with 3 little pigs.
Now you see, this is how all those stories get started.
Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and 2 ugly stepsisters.
This is the story of Cinderella. A long time ago, when Cinderella was a little girl, she lived in a faraway kingdom with her parents. Sadly, her mother tragically died, and her father became very lonely. So he remarried to a horrible woman who had 2 horrible daughters. They were ugly too. I mean, they must have hit every branch on the ugly tree. Not just once, but probably twice.
And her dad was a traveling salesman, and so he left a lot. And the evil, ugly, stupid stepmother witch, the snake witch, she would make Cinderella do stuff like, Cinderella, clean the floor. Cinderella, dust the curtains. Cinderella, wash the window. She made Cinderella do all the Charlie work around the house.
Yeah, mean bitch.
Yeah. And did she live with someone else that you recall? Because I thought there were 3 little pigs.
Well, you would, but, that's not the way it was. She had 2 daughters.
Oh, those were the little pigs. So it's about the same. The mean old stepmother and the 2 ugly sisters.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's 3.
It's like 3 little pigs.
Oh, now I understand the confusion.
So there was the 3 wicked stepsisters and the wicked stepmother. For my story, we'll call them the Kardashians.
My mom used to tell me this story. It's the story of Cinderella. Cinderella was a little girl who was a teenager, who her mom died, and her dad married an ugly witch. And she had, ugly witch had 2 kids who were Cinderella's stepsisters. And her dad was a traveling salesman, and so he left a lot. And the evil, ugly, stupid stepmother witch, the snake witch, she would make Cinderella do stuff like, Cinderella, clean the floor. Cinderella, dust the curtains. Cinderella, wash the window. She made Cinderella do all the Charlie work around the house. So Cinderella, she was like really working hard and stuff. And then they found out that the prince was going to throw a ball. That sounds painful.
The prince was having a ball because he needed to get married.
Why would anyone want to do that?
One day, the king sent out an invitation to everyone in the village, including Cinderella, the stepsisters, and the stepmother. This particular ball was very exciting indeed, because the king's son was going to be attending the ball, looking for a wife.
So one day there was this really wild orgy party going on, and everybody in the town was invited except for Cinderella, of course, because she was so different and she had these funny feet and nobody wanted to be seen with her. But she really wanted to go because there was this eligible bachelor that was going to be there and apparently had a really large wing wong.
Well, he's going to throw a big party where everybody dances like this. We're dancing.
One day, a message came to the house. The prince was going to have a ball, and he was inviting every young woman to the ball. Cinderella was excited because she wanted to go. So she asked her stepmother, "Can I please go?" And of course the stepsisters laughed, and the stepmother said, "Of course you can go. But you have to get all your chores done, and you have to make yourself a dress, because God knows I don't have that kind of time." Well, the stepmother doubled Cinderella's chores, and she couldn't get them all done in time for the ball. And of course she was upset, because she really wanted to go to the ball, because her stepsisters were going to go. So on the day of the ball, the stepsisters got dressed in their new dresses, and they went off to the ball as they waved to Cinderella, "Goodbye, Cinderella, have fun." Cinderella was so upset, she went to the garden and began to cry, until she heard a voice say, "Stop, Cinderella, stop crying."
Anyway, Cinderella was so depressed, she decided to go into her stepsister's room, open her drawer, and she found some grass. She knew the stash was there, right? So she rolled herself a really fat doobie and got really, really high. And this is why she started seeing fairy godmothers and pumpkin carriages and stuff, because she was high.
Come on, if you look at my Facebook page, you know I'm all about pugs, not drugs.
But all of a sudden, while Cinderella was cleaning, she was wishing she could go to the dance ball thing. And all of a sudden, her fairy godmother appeared. Yeah. And her fairy godmother was like, "Hello, Cinderella. I am here to make your wishes come true." And the fairy godmother went bippity boppity boopity, because I can't say it like Walt Disney or they'll sue me. And all of a sudden, Cinderella turned into this beautiful princess with these glass slippers. And then the fairy godmother went, "Well, you're going to have a carriage, sweetie." And he took his wand and he did like that. And all of a sudden, a pumpkin outside turned into a big, beautiful pumpkin-y carriage. And he turned the mice into horses. He went bippity boppity boopity. And all of a sudden, all these things were like, and Cinderella's like, "Oh, this is so cool. This is so cool." And so she got into the carriage. But the fairy godmother, he said to her, "Be warned, sweetie. At midnight, all of this stuff turns back into your crappy life." And so she was like, "Oh, I'll try to be mindful of the time."
Who needs a fairy godmother? I went down to the resale shop and got this beautiful gown for $14.99.
Cinderella arrived at the palace late and was instantly noticed by the king's son. He went straight over to her.
Well, when she walked into the party, this eligible bachelor that all the women were all over saw her right away, and he went up to her. Oh my God, was he attracted to her. Incredible. Turns out he was a gynecologist.
A gynecologist? Are you kidding?
He asked her for a dance, and she danced and danced with the king's son all night long until it got to 12 o'clock.
So they were dancing the night away, and she wasn't wearing a watch.
That's right, but she knew that she had to be back at home or leave the ball by midnight, or else she turn back into her rags, and her stagecoach would turn back into a pumpkin, and her, you know, the mice would
Be mice
appear, and
instead of being horses. Yeah. Okay.
So once she realized that it was that close, she just exited stage left, ran down the stairs, lost one of her glass slippers, and off she went.
And she disappeared.
She disappeared into the night.
And she never came back.
Oh.
And so the prince was going, huh, I had this babe, and she's gone.
And of course the next day, the stepmother and stepsisters treated Cinderella like crap. They made her scrub the floors, do the dishes, do the laundry, even massage their feet. Their feet. Which then, had warts. Bad. When they heard a knock on the door, and of course, when the stepmother went to the door, she saw it was a messenger from the prince. The messenger said, "Bring out your daughters. We have to have them try on this glass slipper because the prince is trying to find out who foot fits this glass slipper."
Makes sense. Anyhow, Sophie! Sophie, be quiet, I'm trying to tell a story! Stupid dog. Anyhow, the prince tries to put the ugly stepsister in one of the glasses, but her foot is like this big, and it's like really like a basketball playing man's foot. And he's like, that's not gonna happen. And then the other ugly stepsister, her foot's too fat. It was too fat, it wouldn't fit in a little shoe. But Cinderella was in the corner. The prince looked at her and said, let's try putting the slipper on her. And the mother was like, oh, she's no good. She's just our cleaning lady. Don't worry about her. Well, Cinderella stood up and the prince walked over to her, and her foot fit perfectly in that glass slipper.
And to make a long story short, they lived happily ever after, together in the castle, until one day the prince cheated on Cinderella and she took everything, including the castle, and all his trophies. So what's the moral of the story? Guys, don't cheat with the stepsisters. Not a very good thing. Bad on you.
They got married and they had several children together, and then unfortunately he left her and hooked up with Jack and the Beanstalk. But she went on with her children, and we later came to know her as the old lady that lived in the shoe. And that's the real story of Cinderella. Sad, huh?
I want to thank everyone for trying to set the story straight. But I think for now, I'll pass on love.